My name is Professor Eric Klein. I'm the chair of the Department of Classical and Semitic Languages and Literatures here at George Washington University. It's my distinct pleasure today to welcome you all on behalf of George Washington University. We're going to hear Donny George speak. It is a distinct pleasure and an honor to hear him. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce first Dr. Hadi Khalili, the cultural attaché for the Embassy of Iraq, and he will say a few words and then introduce Dr. George.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ضيوف الكرام الأخوات والإخوة الأفاضل، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسعدني ويشرفني أن أرحب بكم في هذا النشاط الثقافي. نأمل أن يكون نشاطنا الأول هذا بداية خيرة للنشاطات الثقافية الدورية. نتطلع إلى اليوم الذي يعم فيه السلام في ربوع عراقنا الجريح، وأن ينعم فيه بالسلام والأمان. حفظ الله عراقنا وأهلنا. Ambassador of Iraq, Mr. Samir Sumaydai, Dr. Eddie Klein, honorable guests, our Iraqi brothers and sisters, good afternoon. It's a great pleasure and honor to have our first cultural activity at this great university, George Washington University. Our appreciation and thanks to Dr. Klein, Jim Hess, and his wonderful team for making this event possible. This is the first cultural activity in Washington, and we hope that it shall mark the beginning of continued cultural activities. As Iraq turns a new page in its history, there is much to be thankful for regarding its archaeological heritage. Iraq arguably has the longest and richest history on earth, and now, after years of repression, it can look forward to sharing its heritage freely with the world. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenges are daunting, the opportunities are exhilarating. Working together, we can ensure the future of Iraq's priceless world heritage. It's my great pleasure and honor to present to you our scholar and expert, Dr. Donny George. He got his BSc in ancient archaeology from the College of Arts, University of Baghdad in 1974. September 1986, he got his MA in prehistoric archaeology in Department of Archaeology, College of Arts, University of Baghdad. In November 1995, he got his PhD in prehistoric archaeology in Department of Archaeology, College of Arts, University of Baghdad. And in 1976, he started as staff member in the Iraqi Museum. In 1980, he was director of the Documentation Center, supervising the documentation there. In 1986 to 1987, field director of the Babylon Restoration Project, a project which was allocated for it 25 million Iraqi dinars, which at that time was about $80 million. In 1988, archaeological investigation in the eastern wall of Nineveh. He was appointed there as director of that program, and that's about $5 million project. In 1989, scientific supervisor in Bakhma Dam archaeological rescue project. That dam proved to have archaeological sites which he contributed in preserving this. In 1990, director of relations of an administration job, and in 1992, he went back to director of Documentation Center. And December 2000 to November 2003, he was Director General of Research and Studies. And then in November 2003 to August 2005, Director General of Iraqi Museum. And August 2005 to August 2006, he was the chairman of the State Board of Antiquities and Heritage, which is the highest organization to look after archaeology in Iraq. He has many publications, attended many conferences, and I'm sure many of you know him more than perhaps written here and more than I do myself. I have the honor and the pleasure to present you Dr. Donny George.
Great pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the Ambassador of the Republic of Iraq, ladies and gentlemen, really it's a great honor for me to be here to talk to you about the Iraq Museum. The Iraq Museum actually is considered one of the rare museums in the world that contains the history and antiquities for mankind, and I insist on this, for mankind, starting from 500,000 years till the beginning of the last century. That's the only place in the world that you can follow the history of technology, language, writing, agriculture, sculptures, and art in the world. You can continuously see that in one place. That's the Iraq Museum. Therefore, it is one of the most important museums, I believe, in the world. Gertrude Bell started the museum in 1923 when she decided to divide the antiquities discovered by Sir Leonard Woolley in Ur. She decided that the Iraqi people deserve to have their own museum. So she started by dividing the antiquities of Sir Leonard Woolley in two halves. One half goes to the Iraqi government, the second half goes to the expedition. Then this second half would be in two quarters, one for the British Museum and one for the Pennsylvania University Museum here in the States. So she started the real museum in two rooms in what we call Qushla, that's a barracks, an Ottoman barracks in Baghdad. That was the beginning of the Iraq Museum. Then in 1936, there was a special building which is on the eastern side of the Tigris now. The museum, because it started having a lot of material, they moved in this museum in 1936. And then, as the collection was growing up, the government decided to build another big museum, which is the picture that you can see here. It was finished in 1960, and the display of the objects, it was finished and it was opened in 1964, which is the same building as you can see now. These are the steps how the Iraq Museum developed, and of course the collection developed so much in these years. This was meant to be, this is a replica of an Assyrian gate from Khorsabad. It was meant to be the entrance of the museum, but afterwards it was shifted to the side gate that you have seen. But in 2003, this received this shot. In it, in fact, in 1982, we converted that entrance, that it was this replica, into Children Museum. It was designed for children in kindergartens and the first and second year in school to come and see this museum, especially for children. Elder ones would go to the larger museum. But it was this that received this shot in 2003. Now, with the help of donations from Japan and UNESCO, this is the situation of this museum, or this replica of the gate, and we hope very soon that it will function as a children's museum in Baghdad. This is an area, it's a satellite shot for the museum area. This is the museum triangle, and here is the library, and these are the halls of the museum here, and all this is the administration area. In 2003, this was the situation of around 120 doors of the whole institution, because the looters could not break through the doors, but they broke the doors in this way. Of course, they got everything. When I say everything, even the switches for the electricity were taken. Computers, furniture, telephones, and everything. And they had piled papers in separate areas in the museum area. And in the administration, we believe at the intention of setting fire to the whole building, as they did for other buildings, other governmental buildings. All what you see here is mostly archaeological documents, cards, museum cards, negatives and positives, and reports and everything. They are not just normal paper. The main control room of the museum was smashed like this, and the video recorders that recorded 24 hours from the galleries and from outside the galleries were completely taken away, and everything was destroyed in this way. This was the first point that the looters had entered the museum. Now, previously, years before 2003, this was a glass brick window, and previously we had completely sealed it, and it's in a remote area in the museum. But those looters knew how to come and break through this window, and they went into the galleries of the museum. This was the second point where they broke through with this small window from the other side of the museum. When I went into the galleries, I found these glass cutters. This means, first, those looters knew how to enter the museum. Second, they were prepared because they brought these glass cutters with them to cut the glass showcases we had. This is in the Sumerian gallery. This is the base for the famous piece of Warka vase. It was completely smashed like this. This is again in the Sumerian gallery. As you can see, they have extracted objects coming from one of the Sumerian sites in the south. And this was the day when the first fact-finding committee of UNESCO had arrived to the museum. In the Babylonian gallery, the Babylonian period is very well known in Iraq, that they have this kind of terracotta lines. I mean Babylonian period, that's around 1900 BC. And these are heavy ones which they could not take, but they smashed them there in their places. This line comes from a site called Tel Harmal, very important site in Baghdad. And of course they could not move it, they smashed the head, and the head is in the polyethylene bag here. And this is a picture of the line before it was smashed. This is in the Assyrian gallery, when they knocked down the statue of Shalmaneser III. But this is the statue of Shalmaneser III that was brought back to the museum. In fact, it has a very important story. It was 3 days after we came back to the museum, after the looting, 2 young people came to me and said, "Don't ask us about our names or our addresses. We want to tell you a fact that we were in the museum during the looting time. We could not stop the people because they were all armed, but we decided to take things home, and we'll bring them back to you as soon as we know that the museum is safe enough." And then they brought 9 very important pieces that they have taken from the galleries and brought them back. Among them was this very important statue for King Shalmaneser III. Now this is the Assyrian Grand Gallery. It contains reliefs from the Assyrian sites. And as you can see, this is here, it's back to its place this statue of Shalmaneser III. This is a very important statue, comes from Hatra. It's about 200 BC till 200 AD. They have taken the head away, and it has not come back yet. This was the statue with the head on. This one is gone now. This is the statue, bronze statue of Nike, the goddess of victory. It was found also in Hatra. Now the head is missing. These were some statues that we believe from Greek origin. They were from Roman times, and we believe they come originally from Europe, because this is a marble. We don't have it in the country and in the area. And they have been smashed, and their heads have been taken away. And these were the situation of these two statues. But this was the situation of Poseidon statue in the museum. They smashed it completely, as you can see. And they took the head away. And this was the statue as original. As Dr. Al-Khalili mentioned, we do have a lot of help coming from the neighboring countries, especially Jordan. This is a good number of antiquities that were seized in the Department of Antiquities in Jordan. This is one of the important pieces. It's made of ivory. It's a bedhead from the Assyrian period. It goes to around the 8th millennium BC. A very important piece, it's made of ivory and precious stones. It's called the Lioness and the Nubian. This is stolen, and it has not come back yet. Again, a very important piece from the Sumerian period, 3200 BC. This was stolen, and it came back with the efforts of a joint team from the American forces, MPs, with the Iraqi police. And they brought this piece back, and the other pieces like the Basitki statue, as we may see. This is the famous Warka vase that was brought back to the museum when Colonel Matthew Bogdanos was there and his team. And it was brought back to the museum in this way, pieces, but we have all the pieces that had been broken, and they are back. This is a very famous statue. It's called Basitki statue. It was found in a village in the north between Dohok and Zakhu. It's from the Akkadian period, around 2300 BC. And the important thing about this piece was it was made in a technique, even the artists now use it. It's the lost wax technique. And we have an inscription on it, and we know how to date it exactly to the reign of Naram-Sin, the famous king of Akkad. The second day it was cleaned like this. When it was stolen, it was completely covered with grease and suspended in a cesspit. And they found it and brought it back to the museum, and it was cleaned in this way. Again, a very nice piece of a brazier that was found by the Italian team in their excavations in the site of Nimrud. It represents Assyrian, it's a replica of Assyrian walls, although John Russell would say, no, they are the enemy's walls. But it is a very nice piece, actually. This is the famous statue of Antemena or Enmetena that was stolen from the Sumerian gallery, and it was found, captured by the American customs in New York, and it's now in Iraqi lands. In 2003, it was so much said that the treasures we had from the Nimrud city, the Assyrian city, the gold treasures, that had been taken or had been looted or even some people said it's been taken by Saddam's wife. But then it was decided that we should display this treasure, at least for one day, to show the people it's there and it's safe enough. So it was brought to the museum one day, and it was guarded by these people, young army men, and these people, together with some Iraqis, slept with this box overnight in one of the galleries till the next morning, where it was displayed for 3 hours, then taken back to its hiding place, if I may call. This is the material. It was a treasure, if I may call it, that was found in 3 graves in the residential area in the northwestern palace in Nimrud. It goes back to around the 8th or 9th century. It differs from grave to grave. The material is just gold. It's about 65 kilograms of gold, regardless the wonderful craftsmanship that it has. This is a beautiful diadem, and what you see here, it's woven with gold threads, and this one is 6 centimeters wide. These are anklets, different sizes, but the larger ones here, each one of them is 1,600 grams of pure gold. I won't say anything. You just these are really stunning material, and this is the natural size crown that it represents. Wonderful craftsmanship, as you can see, the flowers, the pomegranates, and the flying angels, and the veneer on top of it. And these are here, these represent actually clusters of grapes, and they are stuck together with some material, and the grapes are made of precious stones, but each one is individual and they are stuck together, and this could be the oldest glue that we have until now. It's about 2,800 years. Again, another masterpiece in that treasure. Here, as you can see, this is the stopper, this is a cover. It's made of ebony, and it's still there. And these reliefs are less than 1 centimeter. And you can see tremendous details that the Assyrian artists had done there. Now, what's happening in the Iraqi Museum now, actually, is that we have a project together with the Iraqi-Italian Institute of Archaeology to have a new lighting system in this Assyrian gallery. As you can see, the lighting here is from 1960. So we needed to have a kind of even lighting for those sculptures that you have seen, but they've covered them in order to protect them. A complete scaffold was done in all these in this gallery, and the reliefs are here completely covered. Iraqi people started bringing antiquities back to the museum. One thing positive happened after the looting of the museum. Actually, people started really having very good feeling for the antiquities and for the museum. And I've met people who said that we could accept anything that might happen to the country, but not what happened to the Iraq Museum. It really struck them in the heart. But then different kind of people, different parties members brought antiquities to the museum, and they are all, these pieces are museum objects that were stolen. The Iraqi Youth Organization arranged a kind of special committee for protecting antiquities, and they have brought thousands of objects back to the museum, either those that were stolen from the museum or the ones that were stolen from the archaeological sites, especially in the southern parts of the country, even among them gold material. The Italians, because we have the Italian Carabinieri forces there, they brought back to the museum 822 items. They were all museum items. They were all numbered, as you may see in these pictures. These are some of the Iraqi material that are in Jordan, safeguarded there, and we even had our people in the laboratory training in Jordan. They did a lot of conservation work there. Again, some tablets, clay tablets in Jordan. As you can see, some of them also from the Iraqi Museum, which they have the IM numbers on them. The Italians had completely refurbished the laboratory of the museum, and as you can see, they trained also here. We have young Iraqis, graduates from science colleges like biologists and physicists and chemists. They were these people that were trained and to the conservation, for the conservation of the antiquities in the laboratory. This is the line that you have seen, and it's here worked on by one of the Italian conservators. Of course, all their work has been documented for the first time in computers. And as you can see in this, sorry, what happened? Okay, it must be from the computer. Okay, it jumped up. There was a picture of some of the staff of the museum who were working on the computers. I just wanted to put that and tell you that before 2003, people in the museum, the staff we had, they were just afraid to touch keyboards. But now, I would say most of them have computers on their desks, and everything is done by computer. And this goes back, actually, this takes me back to donations, especially coming from the United States, done through the State Department, that we had refurbished the whole building of the whole complex of the State Board of Antiquities and Heritage, and then equipped with internet access and with computers. Together, of course, as I say, when I say the whole building, this includes even the air conditioning system. These are the ivories, some of the very important ivories in the museum, which actually until now, they are in this situation. Some of them are from even 1991, stored, and when we checked them after 10 years, 11 years, they were in this situation, because ivory is a very delicate material, and some of them, as I may show here, even have fungus and even insects in them. This is the famous Mona Lisa Nimrud, and it's in this shape now. This was in the central bank, and the central bank stores were flooded, and it's because of the flooding that this piece has suffered so much. These are ivories that actually were hidden from the 1991 war, and they were left unattended until for over 11 years. And this was the situation when we opened them. The wrapping material had been stuck on them, and sometime the water table had gone up and then went down, and as you can see, they are in a very bad situation. For this, we had some of our conservation young people being trained in Baltimore to restore these things, and we were just about to start doing this when we had to close the museum a few months ago. The situation in the museum area is very, very critical. Just behind the museum is the Haifa Street, which has been so much troubled. We received several times shooting on our guards, and this is one of the incidents. That 2 guards of the museum were injured, and they were taken to hospital, but they were not killed, thanks God, but they were back. And last week of November 2005, we received a Katyusha missile in the gardens of the museum. We don't know whether the museum was targeted, but at the same day, the Iranian embassy received 3 missiles at the same time, and we had 1 in the gardens of the museum. But as you can see, it is in a very hot spot, the museum. But this is the main entrance of the museum. It is completely refurbished and ready to receive people when the time comes. And of course, as you can see, the fences of the museum were hired. Previously, they were just here. We took them up for 3 meters high, and we have this kind of spiring knives on top of them so that no one can climb over. Even the walls were taken up to 3 meters. This is a new storeroom for the museum. Now it's completely finished, but we cannot go there because the whole thing is sealed. Now, I would say 3 months before last August, we had an incident in the street of the museum. 13 cars, camouflaged, full of armed people. They kidnapped about 50 people from the street of the museum. Afterwards, after 1 hour, we heard that the Minister of Interior said, we don't know anything about these people. So I immediately called the senior staff of the museum and asked them just one important question. What can we do if these people come to the museum and they want to go to the storerooms and they accuse us of anything? They said, we can do nothing. I said, okay, let's seal everything immediately. In 1 day and a half, we took every single piece of antiquities that we had in the rooms where people were working and the conservation and registration. Everything was taken down to the cellars, and we started welding the iron doors of the basement. And these are the last 3 iron doors we had, and they were completely sealed. As you can see, this was the last door, and then we built over ½ meter wall against that, and the whole museum area now is completely sealed. Nobody can go in. All the staff of the administration area of the museum are out. We have distributed them to other rooms, and the whole museum is completely sealed. At least for now, we believe it's safe, but we don't know what will happen. And it was completely camouflaged, as you can see. If someone comes, he would see that it is the end of the corridor. Now, the future plans of the museum. We have arranged for what we can call the Grand Iraq Museum. Perhaps we can call it the cultural city in Baghdad. As you can see here, this is the triangle. This picture I've shown before. This is the triangle of the museum. And here is the Haifa Street. And there are the buildings of Haifa Street. We would love to take the whole area, this one, completely, and enlarge the Iraq Museum, this one, build a complete museum for Islamic art, build a complete museum for heritage material that is less than 200 material, built a big laboratory, 3 or 4 auditoriums for lectures and conferences, one which we have been talking, cuneiform center in this area with generous donations from George Washington University. Not completed, but it is planned to be within this whole area. Of course, a lot of gardens and places. So this is why we called it the cultural city in the center of Baghdad. I have had words from the former Prime Minister, Mr. Al-Ja'fari, that he liked so much the idea, and the government will support this whole project. Now, what we did for the museum also, because everything was documented on paper and ledgers, we arranged with the UNESCO to have a new database for the museum. A Canadian firm called Menisis, they won the bid, and we arranged with them a complete program for the database of the Iraq Museum. And I believe this could be one of the latest in this field. Again, the website of the Iraq Museum, it's arranged to be in Arabic and English. We hope very soon it will come out. A very important problem we have in Iraq now is that we have over 12,500 archaeological sites in the country. And this is the situation of most of the sites in the southern parts of the country. This is a site called Chocha Umma. It's a very well-known site. And this site, unfortunately, produced thousands of clay tablets that are filling the markets here in the United States. As you may see in this second picture, here are our excavations in the site, and here's some of others. All the pits that you see, these are done by the looters. Thousands of pits. This site is 8 square kilometers. And as you can see, completely the whole surface of the site is gone. This is a site that I myself worked, and this is my excavations. It's called al-Agarab, Mother of Scorpions. It's a site from the 3rd millennium BC. Again, these are our excavations, and you can see the looters' excavations there. This is a site also from the 3rd millennium BC. It's called Shmet, and it suffered from the same destiny as the others. These are some examples of, I would say, tens and tens of sites that are being looted daily in the south. And the problem of having these sites guarded and patrolled is a big problem, really, because it needs a lot of effort. I have some estimations here. 15,000 objects were looted from the Iraq Museum. 3,709 of them had come back to the museum. 16,766 pieces had come back to the museum, which were actually stolen from the archaeological sites, and these were not documented. Now, this is a frightening question. If we have in the museum around 17,000 objects from these looted sites, how much has gone out? Which we see, it's floating the markets of the eager collectors in the States, in Japan, and some other, even in Germany now. Now, as for the museum, what's the message? Our message, my own experience is that any museum is due to be looted in this way, because we believe in any kind of destruction, any kind of natural disaster, nobody will be staying in the museums. The guards will not be there. They'll go and see their families. This is what happened. The electronic surveillance system will not work because there will be no electricity. But it seems that there are always people who have targeted these places, and these are the ones that will come in the museums and take what they want. And for this, my idea, as always, I've discussed it with a lot of friends, is the best way to build a museum or remodel any museum in a way that a museum can defend itself without having any guards. For us, I think this was the most important message that we could have from this disaster of the Iraq Museum. Now, we do really thank all the international communities for their help, and the countries and the institutions that we had for the Iraq Museum and for the cultural heritage, actually, that is our own common cultural heritage, that we have it there in our country. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The committee would check every single piece that comes back to the museum, whether it is genuine or not, or fake. Then we pay rewards for this because, and since 2003 until this 2006, we did not have money. But in 2006, we had $500 million Iraqi dinars, so we started buying back material. Yeah. In fact, we started paying people who had started bringing material since 2003, and even now. Yeah. Yes.
I have two questions. One, what is the condition of the artifacts that are down in the basement? Are they in a sealed environment that they won't deteriorate any further? And my second question is, what has been the reaction of the Iraqi government to the sealing off of the museum? You gave your vision for what should be.
Well, to tell you the truth, since about 7 months or 8 months till now, we don't know what's happening to those pieces, but the best thing is that they are safe now. And in those basements, we know we don't have groundwater. So this is one of the important things. It's not a completely dry environment, but it could affect things, but we're not sure, we don't know. The most important thing is to keep them safe. Now, the decision for sealing the museum came actually from myself, because I felt it was in a very dangerous situation. I informed the ministry, and I sealed the museum. Then afterwards, they approved it. But I did it on my own responsibility, and it was something that I had to do it. I could not doing it. Well, the idea is that we cannot open the museum now, so keeping it sealed is much more better. If I can tell you, once the Minister of Interior told me that, why don't we open the museum? I said, well, it's a very soft target. We will have families, non-Iraqis coming and seeing the museum. He said, I'll give you 1,000 soldiers to protect the museum. I said, then it's not a museum, it's a military camp. So it's in this vision, you see, the whole situation must calm down so that we can have a real museum to be visited by people and to enjoy what's in there. Yes, please. I may say, I have arranged for a special section in the Iraq Museum called the Retrieving of the Cultural Property. And we have, it's headed by a PhD bureau, and they have internet access, they check everything. They have ledgers for every single, I might say, perhaps for every single Iraqi material that's outside. They work, they make forms and files for these things, and deliver them to the Iraqi Interpol. The Iraqi Interpol works with the International Interpol, of course, in Paris. So a lot of work has been done on this. And almost every day, every week, we have connections with our friends all over the world. That material is surfacing here and there, and we are following, and the Iraqi embassies are doing a lot to follow these things. A few days ago, I was, even if I'm retired, I was engaged in a follow-up of 2 Iraqi objects that were found in an auction in Munich. And I was in email, constant email with Germany and Baghdad and all. It was a pool, but we are still following this. So there are a lot of efforts being done, but as you can see, the subject is very difficult because countries have different laws for the antiquities. There are countries who allow you to buy and sell antiquities here in the United States, but it's not allowed in other countries. So it's a bit difficult to arrange things, and sometimes if we stop selling one piece somewhere, we have to have lawyers paid by the Iraqi government, arranged by the embassies in that country, Iraqi embassy. So it is a long procedure, really, but we are doing it. It's not stopped. We are doing it wherever we can.
Just one more question, please.
Sir, you mentioned Matthew Bogan.
But I have information that before the war started, this 2003, that there was a group of scholars from the United States went to the Pentagon and went to the State Department, and they even gave CDs with coordinates of the sites and the Iraqi Museum. And one of them even told me that he had told the people at the Pentagon, go and protect the Iraqi Museum. You will find somebody there, cooperative. His name is Donny George. So, but they did not come. And I don't know what happened, but as you said, it could have been prevented, but it did not happen.
Well, thank you very much, Donny. We are really proud of you, and we hope our dreams and your dreams will come true. And thank you very much indeed. Thank you for coming. And before I close, I must acknowledge the great help of Professor John Russell for making this possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor.
On behalf of GW and everybody else here, I'd like to thank Dr. Donny George and the Cultural Attaché and His Excellency the Ambassador and everybody else that made this possible. So thank you all for coming, and what a wonderful event.